You didn't get the message? She said, not looking up from her coffee. I meant it. Don't come by my office. Not ever again. It wasn't the words that hurt. It was the ease with which she said them. Like she was brushing lint off her sleeve. Like I was just another inconvenience in her neatly sorted world. I nodded. Sipped my own coffee, even though it had gone cold. We were at that little cafe downtown, the one she used to love before things got complicated. Before we became polite strangers. I wish I could say I didn't see it coming. But the truth is, I'd seen it from miles away. Felt it in the way her hand started pulling away faster after holding mine. In the way she'd stare through me when I spoke. In the way she said, I love you, like someone reading a script they'd already grown bored of. Still, I held on. I held on because I remembered who we used to be. Because I thought if I gave her space, if I showed up with flowers, if I fixed the leaky sink she never asked me to fix, maybe, just maybe, she'd come back to me. Instead, she gave me distance. So much distance, I started talking to my own shadow just to remember what my voice sounded like in a room with another person. And now this, don't show up to my office. I didn't ask why. I didn't beg. I just smiled that small, tired smile you wear when you realize the last page of a chapter has already turned without your permission. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, counting the spinning fan blades like they were seconds lost. I thought about the early days, when we couldn't stop texting, when just being near her felt like standing too close to a sun you didn't want to escape from. She used to say I grounded her, that I made her feel safe. And maybe that's the problem. Safety isn't sexy once people start chasing storms. She was chasing something now, I just didn't know what. Or who. I found out 2 weeks later. It started with a property alert. One of those emails I get as part of the development firm I co-own. A commercial building downtown was about to go under. Classic mismanagement, bad books, tenant disputes. But the address, it stopped me. Her building. The same one where her firm leased 3 floors for their so-called female-led innovation hub. She was proud of it. Posted pictures on social media, grinning beside politicians and influencers and clients who never saw the cracks beneath her carefully painted exterior. I hadn't been back there since the opening gala. I remembered standing in the back corner, drink in hand, watching her work the room like a queen. I was proud of her. Foolishly so. I thought her glow was mine, too. I never imagined I'd one day buy the building out from under her. But I did. Quietly. Through a shell company I'd set up years earlier for just this kind of move. It wasn't revenge. Not at first. It was just business. An opportunity. Until I remembered her voice. Don't show up to my office. So I did. As the new owner of the building. 3 weeks after signing the final deed transfer, I walked through the front doors with my head high and my heart strangely calm. The receptionist gave me a practice smile. Do you have an appointment? No, I don't need one, I said. I'm the new landlord. I let that sit for a moment. She blinked, then checked her screen. Her smile faltered. Oh, of course. Right this way. I could have gone straight to the top floor. Could have stormed in and watched her squirm. But that wasn't me. Not anymore. Instead, I asked for the facilities manager. Sat down in the tenant meeting like any other investor would. Cool. Civil, discreet. The next day, I sent her an official notice. Nothing dramatic. Just a formal letter from building management requesting a review of her lease agreement. Something about early violations, overdue fees, noise complaints from adjacent tenants. All technically true. All previously ignored by the last owner. Her assistant called to schedule a meeting. I declined. A week passed. Then 2. Until finally, a calendar invite popped up on my phone. Subject, lease discussion. Time, Tuesday, 11 a.m. Location, her office. I walked in right on time. She didn't look up at first. Just stood near the window, arms folded, her back to me. Was it always about control? She asked quietly. I didn't answer. She turned then, slowly. Her eyes scanned me like a stranger. And maybe I was now. Maybe grief, pain, and quiet planning had rewritten me into someone even she couldn't read anymore. When she saw my smile, her face froze. She said nothing. I smiled. And that silence, that moment, it said everything. She didn't offer me a seat. I didn't need one. She stood behind her desk like it was armor, like the polished mahogany could protect her from the truth quietly unfolding in front of her. I stayed near the door, hands in my pockets, calm as ever. What are you doing here? She finally asked, voice tighter than before. I own the building, I said. I thought it was appropriate to pay a visit. She scoffed. You could have sent someone. You're not that kind of man. That part made me pause. She was right. I wasn't that kind of man. Not the kind who made dramatic entrances or played games with people's lives. I was the one who brought her soup when she was sick. The one who stood outside her office with flowers the day she landed her first client. The man who once believed her success was our shared dream. But dreams change when you wake up alone. You said don't come to your office, I replied. So I didn't. Until I owned it. That landed heavier than I expected. She sat down. Not because she wanted to, but because her legs betrayed her. The silence that followed was thick. Not angry. Not desperate. Just full. Like neither of us knew how to speak the same language anymore. I studied her. She looked tired. A version of her I hadn't seen before. Not the one who graced magazine covers or hosted wine-soaked rooftop panels about feminine leadership. This was a woman slowly unraveling beneath pressure she couldn't quite name. You think this is revenge? She said after a while, her voice quieter. Because I told you not to show up? I didn't answer that. Not directly. Because if I said no, it'd be a lie. And if I said yes, it'd cheapen everything I'd done to get here. Instead, I walked toward her bookshelf, ran a finger along the spines of the leadership books she used to read aloud to me at night, like scriptures. Her name was on the spine of one of them. A bestseller 2 years ago. How's the book doing? I asked. She didn't respond. That told me more than any number could. People still buying it. I pressed, gently. She exhaled sharply, eyes flicking to the door like she wanted this to be over. Why are you really here, Tyler? The way she said my name, like it tasted unfamiliar. I turned to face her fully. Because somewhere between funding your company and folding your laundry, I became invisible. And you? Somehow, you convinced yourself that made me weak. I didn't, she started. You did. I cut in. You didn't say it, but you lived it. Her mouth opened like she wanted to argue, but she didn't. Not really. Because deep down, she knew. I never wanted to hurt you, she said after a long beat. It wasn't about that. I know. She looked up, surprised. That's what makes it worse, I said. You didn't do it in anger. You did it because it was convenient. Because you thought I'd never leave. That I'd never notice. That I'd always be standing just outside your spotlight, clapping while you took the stage. She blinked hard. Her chin trembled slightly before she caught herself. The truth is, this wasn't about her office. Or the building. Or even the way she pushed me out of her world one boundary at a time. This was about seeing her face me without the mask. Without the crowd. Without the applause she'd grown addicted to. You never gave me a seat at the table, I said. So I bought the house. That hit her. Deep. I saw it in the way her jaw clenched, the way her eyes flicked away again. You going to evict us? She asked. Is that the play? No. I'm not here to ruin you. She raised an eyebrow. Then what is this? I smiled softly. This is closure. She opened her mouth, but no words came. I don't want your company, I said. I don't want your staff. I don't want your brand, or your money, or your guilt. Then why? Because I needed you to see me, I said. And that's when her face cracked. Not dramatically. No tears. No sobs. Just the slightest tremble in her expression, like someone standing on thin ice who finally hears it groan beneath them. She folded her hands on the desk. What now? Now, I said, stepping back toward the door. Now I move on. I've already sold the building. Papers were signed yesterday. Her head jerked up. You sold it. I nodded. At a loss, too. Didn't care. I didn't buy it for profit. You bought it just to. No, I interrupted. I bought it so I could decide when the story ended. She didn't speak. I paused at the door. Look back one last time. You said don't show up. I said. So I didn't. Until I could walk in and walk out on my terms. She watched me. Eyes stormy. Lips parted like she still had something to say. But she didn't. She said nothing. I smiled. I didn't look back after I stepped out of her office. Not because I didn't want to. Not because some part of me didn't ache to see if she was still watching, if she'd changed her mind, if maybe, just maybe, she'd call my name one last time. But because I knew better. We always hope that the people who break us will somehow be the ones to put us back together. That's the lie we carry through most endings. The idea that pain can come full circle into healing if we just give it one more try. But love, when it dies quietly, doesn't come back with apologies. It doesn't resurrect in boardrooms or doorways. It just leaves. I stepped into the elevator, pressed the lobby button, and let the silence wrap around me like an old coat. The same one I used to wear on the long walks we'd take back, when her fingers naturally reached for mine. Before she started walking ahead. Before she stopped reaching at all. By the time I reached the ground floor, it was done. Not just the meeting. Not just the symbolic walk-in and walk-out moment I'd spent a year building toward. But all of it. Her. Us. The ache. The wondering. Done. Out on the street. The air felt different. Lighter, somehow. I slipped on my sunglasses and walked down toward a small cafe I'd discovered weeks earlier during one of my building visits. Quiet, tucked between two brownstones, with those wooden chairs that creak when you shift your weight. The kind of place you'd never take a client, but would go alone to think. I ordered black coffee, no sugar, sat near the window, watched the city move, and I let myself feel it. Not victory, not triumph. Something far smaller, far deeper. Release. There was no applause, no dramatic crescendo. Just a kind of inner quiet I hadn't known in years. The absence of tension. The realization that I no longer had to pretend I didn't know how things really were between us. That I didn't have to beg for a place in someone's life who'd already locked the door from the inside. I'd stopped fighting for someone who wouldn't have noticed if I disappeared. Now, I could finally disappear on my terms. That evening, I packed a small bag. No ceremony, just the essentials. I left behind the city, the building, the neighborhood where our names once coexisted on mailboxes and dinner reservations. I drove until the skyline blurred into fields, until the road stopped buzzing in my ears and all I could hear was my own breath again. I rented a cabin off some forgotten road in upstate New York. No Wi-Fi, no service, just trees, silence, and the distant sound of water I couldn't yet find. And I wrote. Not a book, not a letter to her, just thoughts, things I hadn't said out loud in years. Journal entry, October 3rd. I loved her. Still do, maybe. But that love lives in a time capsule now, sealed, buried, untouched. I gave her everything I had, and when she couldn't see it, I didn't get angry. I got quiet. I got smart. I became someone else. Not out of spite, but out of survival. Sometimes I wonder if she ever truly saw me, or if I was just the scaffolding holding up her dream. And when the building was complete, there was no longer any use for the man who built it. But I see me now, and I think, for the first time in years, that's enough. I stayed there for a month, maybe longer. Time moved differently when it wasn't measured by her meetings, her mood, her absence. Eventually, I rejoined the world, launched a new firm, something quieter, more deliberate. I stopped chasing investors and started choosing partners. People who didn't just want results, they wanted meaning. And slowly I rebuilt. Not the life we had, but the one I was always meant to have before I bent myself out of shape to fit hers. I heard she stayed in the building. New landlord gave her favorable terms. Her company's still running, though smaller now. Less noise. More humility, maybe. We haven't spoken since that day. Sometimes people ask if I'd ever go back. If I'd take her back. I just smile. Not because I want to avoid the question, but because I finally understand the answer. She said, "Don't show up to my office." So I didn't, until I was the one who owned it. She said nothing, and I smiled, because in that silence, I finally found myself.